And then Jackson is a Democrat. The first, even though it's successor to the Jeffersonian Party. All right. What else do we have to do? Oh, Friday. And I'll remind you again tomorrow. Friday, if I told the students third and fourth period that if you want to come in at lunch and ask questions about the semester test, if there's anything you're not sure on that list, I'll be glad to stick around and watch you guys ask questions. Sound good? I might even answer them. So if you want to come in. All right?
Oh, wait, this is 20 short answers.
Yeah, 20 short IDs.
In 80 minutes.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So we can easily do 21.
You're right, yeah. Way too much time.
24 short IDs?
25.
That 20, 26. So you're 26. Do I hear 30? Come on. So I'm going to give you some columns, and in those columns, you're just going to have to write down. In those columns, you're going to have to write down, or you have to choose 5 from each column. 4 columns, choose 5 from each one. Sound good? It is good because you don't have a choice. And I've not made it yet. I'm going to go through and kind of divvy up the columns. So I always make little changes. Years go by. And don't forget, the short IDs, give a good explanation what it is, try to give an example, and then try to show its cause and effect. Something led to something, or something caused it, so you show it led to something in particular. Some fact, some person, event, or place. All right, let's go and finish up social Darwinism. We're to finish. We get to grab something. Laissez-faire. Did we mention Graham Sumner?
No, just socialists. Oh, we just barely get socialists.
Oh yeah, socialists are the opposite of social Darwinism. We got that? All right. And Herbert Spencer, we mentioned him.
Yep.
And this is a political ideology about government. Who should government help? Yeah, because they're supposed to be on top, and therefore the whole country will prosper. And so that is why, they're more laissez-faire. And Spencer came over to the United States in the 1870s. And when Herbert Spencer came to the U.S., who paid for his trip were men like Jay Gould, Cornelius Vanderbilt, and Carnegie. Because they looked at him as kind of like this patron saint that justifies all that we are. And when Sumner arrived at the docks in Manhattan, they met him there. But they took him to the 5 Points area of Manhattan. 5 Points is the poorest area of Manhattan. It's the poorest area because Manhattan's this long, skinny island, basically of granite, but it's kind of a depressed area, elevation-wise. So all the sewage and water runs to that area. So that's kind of a swampy area. So when they built up the town, that's where the poor went. And it was during the Depression, came after the Panic of 1873. So what Sumner saw there was absolute misery. That seems right here, doesn't it? Yeah. Is that better? Would you rather have it like this? Or like that? The other way. Is there a light out?
It's just brighter outside. It's cloudy.
Sun, I hate that.
Wait, so we're talking about Sumner and not Spencer?
That's Spencer. Spencer. If I said Sumner, I meant to say Spencer went to the United States.
Oh.
Did I say Sumner?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant to say Spencer. Spencer went to the United States. And when he got there and saw how the poor lived, he's like, no, I didn't mean that people live like this. You should still be on top, but can't treat people like that. And they looked at him like, how dare you, you heathen. And they literally just sent him back home. True story.
Like, they just put him right back on.
Literally, yeah. How dare you? No, and they wanted him gone. We liked you so much when you said they didn't want someone to come over and say you're doing the wrong thing. Well, that's where we get to Graham Sumner. Graham Sumner was an American, but he too, similar vein as Spencer, and he had no moral qualms about this. Don't feel guilty. The classes, in fact, we are supposed to accept our station in life. Accept it. Accept it. So if we're on top, we're fine. And you're on the bottom, quit whining. His book would be What the Other Social Classes Owe Each Other. You don't need to know that, but the point is, one class doesn't owe anything to the other class. And since, of course, the bottom has nothing to give, what we're talking about basically there is the upper class, don't worry about it. So they love Sumner. So Sumner is actually going to become the philosopher who have even more impact, even though Spencer kind of started it. But don't forget, Darwin hated this. Social Darwinism then would become this very dominant. It's technically a philosophy, but in reality, it's a political ideology. It's going to become one of the most important ones. Now, men like Rockefeller believed in social Darwinism, and they thought, yeah, this is exactly right, and this is what God wanted. So they took it more religious nature. Some others, like Gould and a few other ones, they looked at as like more natural. But the point is, it has the same net effect. One man had an issue with it. He believed in social Darwinism, but he wanted to go to heaven. It really bothered him. This was a real issue for him. Andrew Carnegie started out with absolutely nothing, became the richest man in the world. So he looked at it as like, hey, I worked hard, anyone can do it. But he also remembered how awful it was, life was on the bottom. And he was worried that if his actions caused this, the afterlife might be horrible. This was a real issue. He had this very complex Protestant, kind of Puritan look at this. And so, he wanted to prove that he would go to heaven. Remember predestination? He has that kind of idea. I want to prove that I'm going to heaven. How do I prove it? He called it the gospel of wealth. Now, the gospel of wealth, I have to be very clear. It is social Darwinism. It is social Darwinism 100%. But it has a minor change. Sure, in the marketplace, that is natural. The capitalist is on top because it's social Darwinistic ideas. They showed initiative, they showed courage, they got on top. And the ways they got on top, through cutthroat competition, or for that matter, how they paid their workers or working conditions to cut costs, that's natural. So all that stuff is natural. So how I got rich is natural. So he can say, hey, how we treated workers, let's say in Homestead in 1892, which I'll tell you about tomorrow, not a big deal. Because that's the way it's supposed to be. But then, after the fact, what he believed is that it's your duty, once you have this wealth, to make a better world. How? Through philanthropy. Philanthropy is basically charity. Give it back. Now, he said in a Christian way, that's where you get this gospel of wealth. Now, let's be clear. Anybody, when they start talking about a religion, whether it be Christian or any other, when they say it in a Christian way, it's subjective to the person. So that, that can go a lot of different ways. But let's get to what he thought. This is social Darwinism. So he's already decided that low wages is part of the market, so I'm not touching that. But we have an increasing number of poor, especially when he came up with this, and really started doing it when there was an economic panic called the Panic of 1893. We finished the week with that. But when he did this, what he said was, all right, we have poor people, starving people. If I give them money, what will they do with it? Waste it. They'll waste it. So direct aid, no. No direct aid. Because the poor, most people don't know what to do with the money because they're not smart enough. Yeah.
So he said that to make a better world through philanthropy.
Through charity. Give it back.
But then he said not to do it.
Well, not to do it through like higher wages.
Oh, okay.
Because that's the market and that's natural. So do it outside of that system.
So like what?
Charity.
Oh.
But so give it to people, but not directly to people because they'll waste it.
Oh, okay.
So that's very social Darwinistic. So basically what he believes in, they're poor because of what? Why are they poor? Yeah, they're lazy. They have some kind of moral failing. So what we got to do is teach them how to not be poor. So we'll teach them how to not be poor, and then maybe some of them could be like me. Now, maybe not, but we'll give them a shot. But we can't let them decide on their own because they're not smart enough. And you can imagine how Carnegie was pretty proud of himself. You know, I'm pretty smart. Look at what I did. Which, yeah, there's an element. Yeah, you did. That's amazing. Virtually no one else did that the same way. So what he would do is not give direct aid. He would do things like, well, in fact, he would spend over $100 million all over the United States back then. That's an incredible amount of money for libraries.
For what?
Libraries. Almost every library in the country got some kind of Carnegie endowment, including the library here. In my hometown, in Miles City, it was a Carnegie library. So all over. So to get that idea, I'm not going to give you direct aid because you won't know what to do with it, but I'll give you the opportunity to get books and learn on your own. Education. So it's going to be things like you have education and cultural improvement. He gave some money to direct education, helped start a couple colleges, but the library is another example, but he would, for example, build opera houses for workers. The idea being, if you have cultural improvement, then you will realize your moral failings, some of you will, and can move up. And so it's very much the idea that you guys can't do it on your own, I will do it for you. And so that's where you get the complexities of charity, of philanthropy. It didn't have to give anything away. So it's pretty remarkable. The amazing things, the libraries are amazing things. The Opera House in Pittsburgh is unreal, as I understand. I've never been to Pittsburgh. Anyone been there? I heard it's a really neat town. Used to be just smoke, but now I guess it's really nice. You been there?
Mm-hmm.
Did you like it?
I don't remember very much of it.
No, how old were you?
Well, my brother was a competitive gymnast,
Oh,
so we traveled there and stayed there for like 1 or 2 days when I was like really young. It was 8, so I was 6.
so yeah, just enough time to kind of go, oh, I'm in Pittsburgh.
Oh yes.
I was in Pittsburgh, and then you're gone. So you see this today with philanthropy. Some of the richest people in the world are giving a lot of money for charity, but they want control of it because there is also that kind of social Darwinism belief that if I let you people have it, you'll waste it. So I know a better way. And also I'll get the credit for it. And so there's always a double-edged sword in this. Bill Gates, really good example. You know, Bill Gates has given away billions. It's actually remarkable how much, but he wants control. And he wants to make sure that if he gives the money away, it's going to be it's going to be the way he wants it. He doesn't want to keep things the same. He wants it to be different because he did it. And so you can understand why he wants that, but also I think you can understand, in fact, you're living through it. One of the issues with that, you know what it is? You know, even more, you're even in a deeper way than that. The Gates Foundation is the reason why Common Core exists. So you look at Common Core, that's Bill Gates. And he had the money to push it, and he did it. In fact, states adopted Common Core without even a curriculum being written. They didn't even have anything, we have the basic outline, and everyone accepted it. They just kind of threw stuff together. It's actually really remarkable when you think about it. Wow. And since I'm not a real fan of it, you can say, hey, he was trying. But then again, it had to be his way. So it's a double-edged sword. And that's what this gospel of wealth is. And so it's very social Darwinistic. And so this gets to the key argument then about what social Darwinism believes. Let's look at it, not talk about why people are rich, but why are people poor, underemployed, or don't have a lot of money? What is the reason why? There are 2 reasons then, basically.
Lazy and dumb.
Yeah, they're lazy and dumb, so they have some kind of moral or intellectual failing, right, on this hand. Or, what's the other reason they're poor? Because what?
They're meant to be there.
Huh?
They're meant to.
Well, no, they're meant to be there because they're this. What's the other one? Like, well, we don't believe in social Darwinism. What would they believe? Someone who doesn't believe in social Darwinism.
Socialist.
That would be social Darwinism.
Socialist.
What would a socialist think? They're poor because what?
Because
Could be. What?
the rich people.
Could be. But what? I mean, it could be they made them poor. It could be the government's bad. But they're basically poor because what don't they have? Money. So in some way, they should have more money. So it could be, you know, they get more of the profit or they get higher wages or something. So we have these 2 different points of view. Moral failing, but they don't have money. You see those two arguments? You see that? If you were an employer or you had wealth, do you see an incentive to believe one of those two ideas? If you believe they're poor because they don't have enough money, what might that do to you?
You'll lose money.
You might lose money. So don't you have an incentive to say, they're lazy? Now, which is true? It really depends on your political point of view. I would argue, and I know I'm right, there's elements of both, right? But one is more than the other. And which one you believe is more than the other probably tells a lot about your political point of view. Does that make sense? Now, I know what I am. My guess is you probably have a pretty good idea what you are and how it will change as you get older, or at least evolve, so to speak. But all of you probably have a point of view on that. As we all know, what is it? Magic. Correct? So, I've not talked about this, but let me do this very quickly then. Because, okay, we mentioned conservative and liberal. Well, there's a political spectrum, and for maybe you probably remember this, with this left and right. You remember that? You know those.
Yeah.
Well, so imagine we have the middle of the politics. That's just arbitrary, whatever that means. And then you have more right wing and more left wing. So right or left. The more social Darwinistic you are you right or left?
Right.
Right. The more conservative or more social Darwinistic, go this way. So the furthest you could go would be fascism or Nazism, basically. Kind of totalitarian state in that way. But most people in the United States, most people are just, they're close to the center, but they more lean this way. You know, that's basically it. You go this way, you're less social Darwinistic. You less believe that classes are natural. What is it here?
So,
The furthest you can go is anarchist, but some kind of socialism. And don't agree with that. By the way, that's the way they sat in the French Revolution.
the mountain.
Huh?
The mountain.
Yeah, the mountain was right here. In the French Revolution, the first National Assembly, created after the Revolution, the ones who wanted the monarchy, the old aristocracy in charge, they sat to the right. Those who wanted more rights for the people, more radical, like the Mountain or the Jacobins, they sat on the left. That's where that comes from. So you're left wing, right wing, that's where it comes from. Now people misuse this all the time, and you could be like economically like really liberal, but in some ways really conservative. You know, there's no absolutes. But that's where it comes from. By the way, it doesn't quite look that way. It's not a straight line. It's much more complex than that. It's actually a circle. But it's kind of weird. As you get further and further to the extreme, they look for purity, so they try to get the most pure communist and most pure fascist. So they create a totalitarian state. So it kind of goes all the way to both kind of start in the same state, even though they're technically opposite. Happened in the Soviet Union, happened in Nazi Germany. It's weird how that happens. So it's not a straight line. Nothing ever is. But that's the outline of it. So let's very quickly do socialism. Because socialism then would be the opposite movement. And there's all kinds of different degrees of socialism. All kinds. You can't just simply say, you're a socialist, and then you have the 5 different things. Just the same things. You could say that you believe in laws that are capitalism. Wait, there's a whole lot of elements of that to really extreme to not. So obviously things are more complex. By the way, where would President Obama be on this scale? Yeah, he is really middle. Sometimes he's slightly more to the left, but he does have social Darwinistic tendencies. I mean, it's just interesting. He is really kind of good. But only what I was going to say, that's what makes me laugh when people say he's a radical. Oh, no. Of all people, not him. He's like a radical centrist. Okay, so back to this. Socialism. Socialism, as we know it, comes out of the Industrial Revolution. Now, before the Industrial Revolution, the early so-called socialists wanted some kind of utopia. This perfect world where kind of a commune idea. That's where the term communist comes from. The idea is we would share and share alike. Heck, the Mayflower Compact for the for the separatists, the Pilgrims in Plymouth, was kind of a utopian idea. Didn't last very long, but that was it. But with the Industrial Revolution, things changed dramatically. And things changed because of this basic concept. Capitalism, because of its very dynamic nature, that those who own the machines get the profit, which creates incentive. I mean, it's complex. But what happens is this creates very definite classes. Very, very definite classes. And the class extreme, or the difference between the classes, grows as capitalism matures. Because those who have the machines get more profit. Because of economies of scale, they get competitive advantage, and they get more. By the way, new essay, which I've not yet graded this class, but the other class has done well, so I'm hoping you've done well. And the thing is, economies of scale is kind of the essence of that question. And I know as I was looking at the outline, a lot of people have that, or at least kind of explain that. Because that's why everything got big, because of competitive advantages. But back to this. So, we have the classes. And the big element is this. Now, I want to be clear. This is a socialist ideology. It's more complex than this. And don't forget that. Just like in the laissez-faire idea, it's more complex than that too. But the capitalists, they exploit or exploit. They exploit, naturally, they exploit labor. They take advantage of the workers because they have the machines and the labor has to come to them. How do they exploit it? They exploit it through this. They get a profit and all labor gets is wages. Now this is actually a truism in capitalism. But if profit goes up, what happens to wages?
They stay the same.
Doesn't affect it. Wages are in the labor market. So if profits go down, wages can actually go up. There could be elements after the Panic of 1873 where wages were actually going down for railroads as profits continue to go up. But they could cut wages because there were so many unemployed people. So they could say, hey, you want your job? There's someone ready to take it, forcing wages down. Now, once again, there's an element of truth to this. It's more complex, and don't forget, they do take the risk. But here's the key element then. It's productivity. Therefore, what we're talking about here is productivity. How much does a worker work? Or for that matter, who gets the wealth? Who gets the value from someone's productivity? I work harder. Now, everything's relevant, but I operate my machine, I produce more. Who gets the value according to socialists? They get all the value. And so what we're talking about here is then, who's going to get the value for increased productivity? Socialists say labor should get it. Labor should get the value of your productivity. So your capitalism is an economic and political idea, so is socialism. It's economic and political. But remember, social Darwinism was political, social, economic too. So, how do we solve this problem? Socialists believe labor has to get some kind of control. Labor will control the capital. Remember, capital is the means of production. If the labor gets more control, then they can make sure they get some of the value for productivity. That is the basic essence of socialism. There are different degrees of control, but that is socialism. And so, as you go left, you want workers to have more control. Here, capitalists have more control. It's just the basic element of it. So, labor controls the capital. Actually, labor controls the means of production, is what Marx said. And what happens when labor gets some control? The ultimate goal, a classless society. That's the ultimate goal. You get rid of the classes. Now, socialists do not believe in everybody being equal. They're not like everyone's going to be 5'8", 150 pounds, and have $6. No, they don't believe that. What they believe is there won't be that big gap between the classes. So everybody will be in a relatively the same class. So we have relative equality. Another way to look at it is, in a classless society, it would be egalitarian. Egalitarian means a classless. So not total, not like absolute equal, but relatively equal. So no one is more on top. And here's the thing that, to them, this is perfect democracy. Perfect democracy. If you have a system where there's no class differences, then that means that government will function for everybody. They believe, where I'm talking now about the ideal situation. So you won't have one group to take power of government to protect their wealth. That won't exist anymore, so it'll be perfect democracy. So true socialism is a true democracy. Now you might think, wait a second, there were countries that called themselves socialists, they were called communists. Communism is a form of socialism. They weren't democracy. I'll explain why in a second. A little quirk in the theory that they took advantage of. But there's a couple other things. If we have relative equality, socialists don't stop there. We're not talking just all workers. Well, we are, I guess we are talking all workers. That means all workers, meaning who's equal? Like who? With more capitalists, technically.
Yeah.
All the laborers. Who makes up the laborers? Men, women, different races. Socialists are going to be the leaders in the fight for civil rights. For all, when I mean civil rights, that means rights between the races. But another big civil rights is women's rights. Socialists believe in equal rights for everyone. And that's pretty radical stuff. By the way, what a great way to attack somebody who believes in, let's say, feminism, or for that matter, civil rights. Martin Luther King was called a communist all the time. All the time. Obviously, you're a communist if you believe in equal rights, correct? Now, he actually was a moderate socialist, but that's another story. But that is the basic idea. Oh, I should add one more thing. Religion to an socialist, go away. You won't need it. Because they thought religion was used to control the classes. So religion, gone. Now, it's very complex because you could argue the socialist idea kind of becomes a religion. Yes. But we mentioned this before with the positive good theory about slavery. One of the reasons why they would allow slaves to become Christians. They would allow slaves to become Christians because therefore they would not complain about the world here because what's going to happen? The afterlife. So don't complain about your position here. So there was an element of truth that religions have done, and all religions, to kind of keep this class situation there. Now, as we all know anything about religion, especially the beginning of, let's say, Christianity. Christianity actually started out as a poor person's religion. Until the Romans actually adopted it. Then it became more rich. It became complex. But it's more complex, and that's the point. I like the word complex. Have you noticed that? It's a good word. Use it. So, now we have this classless society. In fact, they also said maybe even the states won't be needed anymore. We need countries because we'll all be together. So it gets a little utopian. But what kind of socialists do we have? We have more moderate socialists. And what we have here is the more moderate socialists. The most famous moderate socialist would be Eugene Victor Debs. Debs, pretty amazing guy. He would be the head of the American Railway Union, and then during the Pullman strike, which I'll talk about on Friday, it blew up, or there was a big conflict, and he thought the government cheated him, and he became a moderate socialist. What they believe is the best way to get control of the marketplace was a combination of strong labor unions. So labor unions could negotiate more power for the workers, which is exactly what they do. Also the big reason why capitalists hate them. Labor unions and government. Remember, economies of scale. Only government, only the national government is big enough to actually have some control over these new big corporations that have been created. Now you can make the argument, well, government will do the wrong thing. Might do the right thing, it might. But still, government is the only one big enough. So that was the argument. Now, they want a little bit of this, just to alleviate the class differences. That's more moderate socialists. And then you get to more, as you get more radical, you'll get more and more, as they get more radical socialists, they want more, just government just got to take over. Government just got to own everything. So for example, in Great Britain after World War II, the government basically took over all major industry. They nationalized them is the term. That happened in Great Britain. Oh, I should add, this moderate socialist, the United States has some moderate socialism in like Social Security, schools, that's socialism. But Germany is a very moderate, more socialist than the US. The Netherlands, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Switzerland, France. Northern Europe, Western Europe, moderate socialist countries. Very prosperous, but it's just a different thing than the workers have shorter work days, longer vacations, things like that. All right. So then here is what I want. The more extreme, more government. And then we get to the most radical ones. And the more radical socialists, actually they're going to be more left, but I'm just drawing them here. The communists are a very good example of this. And the communists, they believe the capitalist is never going to give up their power willingly. So what are we going to have to do? We as all this communists. If they won't give it up willingly, what are we going to have to do? And that's where we get revolution. Deb's kind of wavered back. Sometimes Deb said, we just got it wrong. But the revolution could be in a ballot box, like changing the Constitution, changing the government, or it could be literally armed revolution. And that's what Marx said is going to happen. Karl Marx would become kind of the ideological parent of socialism. And in some ways, Marx was brilliant. In some ways, he became kind of this utopian vision, and he also really hated anybody who disagreed with him, so he had those issues. In 1848, he would write the Communist Manifesto, where he laid out, better than anybody else, I did this whole idea here, I did very quickly. The Communist Manifesto, he wrote it with a man by the name of Frederick Engels, but all we care about is Marx right here. And he said, there's got to be a revolution. The capitalists are going to fight, and we're going to have to overthrow them, and then we're going to have to create a new government. And this is where we get this dictatorship. After we create a new government, before we get to the perfect classless society, it's going to take some time to train people, to teach them. And so what Marx said is there'll be a dictatorship of the workers. This dictatorship that will run the country until we're ready for the perfect classless society. This dictatorship. And that's what happened in the Soviet Union. They overthrew the Tsar. They created this dictatorship to create the perfect socialist world. And how long did the dictatorship last? Until the end of the Soviet Union. Once people get power, they don't give it up. And that's what happened. They essentially created a new class. So the communists never got past that moment. China didn't. Vietnam didn't. North Korea, they talked all kinds of workers' rights, and they were just a nasty little dictatorship. Really nasty. So back to this. Revolution. And then lastly, the most radical, so the furthest left, are going to be the anarchists. Anarchists. And the anarchists believe, well, once again, there's different degrees of anarchists. But the main element of anarchists is they don't want anarchy for the sake of anarchy. They're not maniacs. They're not lunatics. blow it up. No. Anarchists believe that the state is so decrepit that it's got to be blown up. And the only way to blow it up is to literally create anarchy. They have to show the state doesn't work. Show the state doesn't work, and out of the ruins of the destroyed state, perfect socialism. So let the state blow itself up in the ruins of classless society. So anarchists don't want anarchy. They just believe it's the best way to create the perfect world. Now, some anarchists were not violent at all. They thought we could blow up the old system by showing how bad the system was. But many anarchists said, that ain't going to work. We're going to have to show people that the system won't work, that the government won't protect them, that it's falling apart, so they rise up. What weapon or what tactic do they use? Terror. Huh? Terror. Terrorism, exactly. Terrorism. Terrorism is a political act. You commit terror because you want people to be so fearful they make a change in the direction you want. Rarely happens, but that's what they want. So what's going to happen is after 1870, there's going to be a wave of anarchist attacks. Assassinations, bombings, you name it, blowing up factories, anarchist attacks, uncoordinated by their very nature, they're anarchists, they can't come together, to show how the state doesn't work. So for example, Tsar Alexander II of Russia was blown in half by an anarchist bomb. Many, a couple premiers of France, the Empress of Austria, Chancellor of Germany, many other government officials would be assassinated or attempted assassinations. The President of the United States was assassinated by an anarchist in 1901, William McKinley. The governor of Idaho was blown up by an anarchist in 1910. All this wave of anarchist attacks. In fact, it led to this real fear that the whole country is going to blow up. That's anarchists. And a comical bomb. You ever seen how they would picture anarchists in a negative way? You're like a round iron ball with, the fuse. That would be like the symbol of an anarchist, some guy rolling a bomb into people. So these are socialists. And they're all different degrees. And let's be clear about it. The different kinds of socialists hate each other, despise each other. I mean, think about it. What do anarchists think about the more moderate socialists who want to work within the system? You're a traitor. You're siding with the enemy. Then what do they think of anarchists? Yeah, you're crazy, and you're giving us a bad name. Okay, so if you wanted to attack Eugene Debs, who's going to run for president 4 times, he did very well in 1912. He got over 1 million votes for president from a prison cell in 1920. He ran for president, and he was in prison because he opposed the war and spoke out against the draft. In wartime, freedom of speech goes away in total war, and he goes to jail. Still got 1 million votes. Really popular politician. If you want to discredit him, would you say, how dare you be a moderate socialist who wants to give workers better benefits and rights? No, what would you call him? You're all socialists. What do you call him? He's nothing but an anarchist. But that's not scary enough, is it? Remember that? And I'm going to tell you what they call them. And this went together. You can't say one without the other. Bomb throwing anarchist. Everyone got that? That became the way to discredit socialists. You're nothing but a bomb throwing anarchist. How dare you? Don't look at me that way, bomb throwing anarchist. And by the way, how do you defend a charge like that when you're not? I am not. That's what one would say. Yes.
So who do they call that? All of them?
Yeah, that's the way they discredit all socialists. You're bomb throwing anarchists. By the way, you can see the same thing. That'd be a way to discredit somebody who's more conservative and believes in social Darwinism. You're a Nazi, which of course isn't true either. But bomb throwing anarchists. Now this gets to the key element here. You notice something. labor unions, they have many of the same ideas as moderate socialists. Companies don't want labor unions. So what are they going to call labor unions? What? What kind of, no, you said it. Not anarchists. Bomb throwing anarchists. And then after the communist revolution in Russia, they'll become just communist rights. Yeah, great way to attack them. Just so you know, Bernie Sanders is a really moderate socialist. He's a moderate socialist. In fact, he is technically not a Democrat. His party is Democratic Socialist. That's his party. And so that's where he is. So just wait, if he does win in Iowa and New Hampshire, the caucus in Iowa, the New Hampshire primary, just wait till all the attacks about him being an evil communist come out. It's going to be really interesting to watch. And the reason I mention this, you can like Bernie Sanders or not. You can't vote. So what do I hear? No. Well, actually, that's kind of the way people look at you, unfortunately. Which is true and kind of sad. I'm going to phrase that. It's sad. But it's happened before. The same kind of stuff's going to come back. We can just predict it. You know for a fact it's going to happen. And we have no other way to predict the future except to do what? Look at the past. And if you don't know the past, you're going to be a horrible predictor of the future. Now, history doesn't quite repeat itself. It's not always the same, but it echoes. It's always the same kind of stuff over and over again. We saw the same reactions to technology, the same reaction to capitalism, the same reaction to wages. Heck, massive inequality today, it already happened in the 1920s, already happened in the 1890s. It's not new. And so the point is, it happens over and over again, so we see this again. So, all these ideas are going to come to a really big event. And what's going to show and also terrify people who have the wealth and also, in a way, embolden people who want more power will be what the real economy does in capitalism. The Panic of 1873. The Panic of 1873 was an economic catastrophe. An absolute catastrophe. Not only was this a depression, the term depression was literally just starting to be used. Like, unlike anyone had seen, forget it. Never been like this before. But not only that, the economy was already pretty bad in 1873. And so times were bad, and it crashed from there. And so a lot of people began to question this, or became even more scared that we got to really do something to hold on to this. This panic will be huge. 20 years later, there will be another one that's even worse. And so the point is, this is like one of those ground-shaking moments. Same thing happened in the Great Depression. Changed everything. It didn't happen as much as I thought it would after 2008. I really thought there'd be more change. But they now kind of go back to the same thing. So what's going to happen is probably something like this. There'll be another one. It'll be really bad. Just in time for you to look for a job. Yeah. Isn't that a horrible thing to say? But it's kind of the reality of things. Yeah, it's when I was a kid, I didn't have to worry about that stuff. Very, very steady, kind of a steady increase. Now we're riding the wave, which is pretty scary. But once again, these are decisions made. These are legal decisions and political decisions. It's not natural. Back to this. What happened was, there was already a panic in 1869. There was already economic downturn because of the Civil War. And then we had this. Remember when Reconstruction ended? It's because the North erupted. It looked like Civil War up there. We can't do it with Reconstruction. We got our own problems. What happened was, every depression starts with over-speculation. People trying to buy stuff low, trying to get rich. And what happened is, and you know, almost every economic over-speculation starts with real estate. And then there's almost always, in the business world with capitalism, it's whatever the new technological wonder is. People are like, oh my goodness, I buy this new thing and I'm going to get rich. In the late 1990s, it was internet technology. There was a big, just over speculation, and then, like, you weren't very old, like a year old, the bubble burst in 2000. That's part of the reason why the economy really wasn't all that good in 2008 when it had a crash, because we had a panic back in 2000. But the tech bubble, it's not, the technology in this era was railroad. Everyone's buying, either they're building railroads, they're investing in railroads, they're buying railroad stock. But what happens to these prices? It's what we call, make sure you get this down, a bubble. It's a bubble. Bubble, think of terms of you're blowing bubble gum. The price of real estate or these stocks keep growing in value. But like a bubble, there's nothing underneath it. They're overvalued. And what happens in every one of these, there's going to be some incident, something happens where people all of a sudden realize what we have is not worth as much. And what happens to the price? What happens to the bubble? And prices crash. And that's what happened in the summer of 1873. For lots of reasons. Partially the gold, the country went on the gold standard. There was a couple of banks shut their doors. A couple of things happened, but it triggered this. We're not going to go all the details of this one. But the bubble popped. And this triggered not only an economic depression, but it also a financial panic. And we mentioned this once before, but think in terms of banks. Banks are loaning money out to people. And what happens is whenever there's a bubble, everybody thinks the prices will go up forever. We'll finish this tomorrow, and we'll also finish up labor unions and the isms, and then agrarian problems, and then we'll be done.